Welcome to JavaSpace. In this video, we are going to talk about repository interface, which is a central interface in Spring Data JPA that will help us to have what we call instant repositories, or those repositories where your implementation Spring gives you at runtime when you start your application. So this obviously helps us to avoid boilerplate code, because instant repositories, what Spring will do, Spring will create, as we will see when we proceed with the series, it will create a proxy bin for you, then it will give implementation of the methods in the repository for you. You don't need to do anything. Spring will take care of that. But Spring does give you some naming conventions for the method, as we will see. So now we see that you are saying goodbye to the boilerplate code. But what do you need to do? As you see on the image snippet here, we have public interface product repo, extend JPA repository, and we give product and also give an ID, or what you call a key or primary key. So your interface must extend repository interface explicitly or implicitly. But on the other hand, if you decide to extend from repository, which is the central, you lose quite a number of things, because that interface is empty. It doesn't have methods. If you use CRUD repository, as the name suggests, you will have basic CRUD operations: find, delete, update, insert, save, and all that. And those methods, Spring will give you those methods out of the box, and Spring will give you implementations of those methods out of the box, and you won't need to do anything. Then you have JPA repository, which is a little bit more rich than the other ones, which is what we normally use in the industry. As you even can see, we have JPA repository here. Then if you want to have sorting and pagination, you want to support paging and pagination, you will want to use the paging and pagination. You will want to use paging and sorting repository. And then you see that JPA repository has paging and sorting, which means with JPA repository you will have CRUD operations. You'll also have pagination. You'll also have sorting inside this one. That's why I said it's a bit more rich than the other ones. And from one of these, Spring will then create a simple JPA repository for you, which is a proxy, or in Spring they call it instant repositories. So I want us to look at this in code quickly before I can say something. So if we come in code, okay, let me choose another project. Let me choose this one. So if we come here, I'm just gonna show you. Let's control click on JPA repository. We see this JPA repository. We have list CRUD repository. We have list paging and sorting repository. Then we have query by example execute. Let's look at this. We see that it extends CRUD repository. Okay, let's go. It extends a repository, and this is a central repository. It's like a root. Then let's look at this one. Obviously, paging and sorting repository, and also it extends repository, as we can see. Okay, we can look this last one. You see, find one, find all, count exists, find by. Okay, I want us to look at this method also. Let's come here. I want to show you the correct one. We see the list. We have save all, find all by ID. Okay, let's come here. We have save all, find exist, delete all, and delete all. We have count. So yes, you can see this is just basic CRUD operation. But there is something I want you to pay attention to. On all these interface repositories by Spring, we see that they are annotated with at no repository bin. Let's go. At no repository bin, at no repository bin, at no repository bin, except this one. Okay, let's proceed. Even JPA repository at no repository bin. So the question you might ask yourself is, why is Spring doing that? So the reason Spring is doing that is, remember that when during component scanning, when Spring finds an interface that extends from repository, it will create an instant repository or a proxy, or what you can call a simple JPA repository. It will create an implementation of it. But now, if it's a JPA repository, this must not be something that you want to implement. It's like an intermediate repository, or you can think of it like an abstract class. It's like an abstraction. You're saying, I abstract this, I put it here. I don't want an implementation of it, but I want people to inherit from it. So when you annotate those interfaces with this, you are telling Spring not to provide implementations of them. So now this tells us that there are cases where you might want to create, I'm just going to show you in my own other personal project. There are cases where you might want to create a repository like that will serve as a base repository. As you can see, I have an abstract repository here, and it extends from JPA repository, and you see that I've annotated with at no repository bin. And the reason is, I do not want Spring to create an implementation of this. I have put it here as an abstract repository because I want all other repositories in my project to extend it. The reason could be just that this one, I don't have anything here. I could have methods that in this abstract repository that should be common to all my repositories in the project. Therefore, I want this to serve as an abstract class in a way. I hope that makes it clear. So in the previous projects of Spring, I don't remember which version, we were required to add this annotation on top of a repository class. So basically, if I come back to this project, so you were required to say at repository, but Spring no longer require you to do this. Although Spring will still be able to achieve what it wants. It will create an instant repository for this quiz repository without you adding this. So I'm just going to remove it. I wanted to put it there for clarity. But some developers still believe it's a good practice to use a repository on top of your repository interface. I don't know. They say it's a good practice, but Spring says you are not required to do that. So you know, it's all about flavors. What do you really want and all that. So repository configuration in the Spring Boot through Spring Data Auto Configuration, Spring will scan interfaces that implicitly or explicitly extend from the base repository, which you saw in the IDE when I was showing you interface. So Spring will create a simple data repository proxy bin for you by default. And as I mentioned, add Spring Boot application activate scanning of these repositories from the current package where the entry class is, and all sub packages. You can also override this behavior, because there are cases where your repositories may not be in the desired location. In that case, you will have to use at enable JPA repositories and specify the package where to find those repositories from. Just like here, we are saying at enable JPA repositories base packages, then we specify these packages. So in terms of configuration of repository interfaces, this is how you will enable them if they are not in the current package.